The first sign of trouble came on a quiet Tuesday morning. People were going about their usual routines, children heading to school, adults commuting to work, and the hum of daily life filling the air. Then, without warning, the sky changed. A shadow passed over the sun, not from clouds but from something far larger and more menacing. At first, people thought it was an eclipse or some strange weather phenomenon. But when they looked up, they saw them. Massive ships, dark and silent, blotting out the blue above. These weren't just any ships. They were enormous, each one bigger than a city. Their surfaces shimmered with an otherworldly metal, and strange symbols glowed faintly along their hulls. No one knew where they had come from or how they had arrived so suddenly. All anyone could do was stare in stunned silence as hundreds, no, thousands, of these alien vessels filled the skies. It didn't take long for the message to come. Across every television, radio and phone screen, the same voice boomed. It wasn't human, but it spoke perfect English, as if mocking humanity's insignificance. "We are the Vorthak," the voice declared. "Your planet is now under our control. Surrender, and your species will be spared. Resist, and you will be erased." Panic erupted almost instantly. Streets emptied as people fled to their homes, clutching loved ones, and wondering what would happen next. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes was rushed to a secure bunker beneath the White House. Around her, military leaders and advisors scrambled to make sense of the situation. Everyone agreed on one thing: Earth had no way to fight back. The world's armies were nothing compared to the sheer size and power of the alien fleet. Among those present was Commander Jack Monroe, head of the newly formed Global Defense Initiative. Tall and stern, with gray hair that hinted at years of service, Monroe stood quietly while others debated. He didn't share their despair. Not yet. Beside him was Dr. Emily Carter, a scientist known for her work studying distant stars. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp, already racing through possibilities. "We need answers," Monroe said finally, cutting through the chaos. "Who are they? Why are they here? And most importantly, what do they want?" Dr. Carter nodded. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. If we can find a weakness." Before she could finish, alarms blared. The Vorthak had begun moving closer to Earth. Cities around the globe reported strange beams scanning the ground, analyzing everything in their path. Fear turned to terror as reports came in of buildings crumbling under the weight of invisible forces. People screamed, running for shelter as the skies grew darker. In New York City, journalist Daniel Brooks watched the scene unfold from his apartment window. His wife, Catherine, held their young son, Liam, close, trying to shield him from the sight outside. Daniel grabbed his camera, knowing he had to document what was happening. As much as he wanted to stay with his family, he also felt a duty to tell the world's story, even if it might be its last. "What are you doing?" Catherine asked, her voice trembling. "I have to go," Daniel replied. "If this is really the end, someone needs to show the truth." Catherine didn't argue. She knew how important his work was. Instead, she hugged Liam tighter and whispered reassurances, though she wasn't sure she believed them herself. As night fell, the Vorthak fleet remained in place, hovering ominously above Earth. The world waited, holding its breath. No one knew what would happen next. All they could do was hope. For a miracle, for salvation, or simply for survival. By the second day, the reality of the situation had sunk in. The Vorthak fleet showed no signs of leaving, and their demands for surrender echoed endlessly across every communication channel. Governments around the world were paralyzed, unsure how to respond. Some leaders tried to negotiate, sending desperate messages into the void, but the Vorthak ignored them. Others prepared for war, even though it was clear that Earth's weapons would be useless against such an advanced enemy. In Washington, D.C., tensions ran high inside the secure bunker beneath the White House. President Laura Hayes called another emergency meeting, bringing together military officials, scientists, and advisors. Commander Jack Monroe stood at the center of the room, His arms crossed tightly over his chest. He didn't like what he was hearing. Whispers of surrender filled the air, along with talk of secret deals being made behind closed doors. Something wasn't right. Who authorized this? Monroe demanded suddenly, slamming a folder onto the table. Inside were intercepted communications between certain United Nations officials and representatives of the Vorthak. The messages revealed plans to hand over large portions of Earth, entire continents, in exchange for sparing human lives. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at President Hayes, who sat frozen in her chair. She looked older than she had just hours ago, her face lined with stress and betrayal. "I didn't authorize this," she said finally, her voice firm despite the weight of the moment. "Someone went behind my back." Monroe clenched his fists but forced himself to stay calm. "If word gets out, it'll destroy whatever unity we have left," he said. "People are scared enough as it is. If they think their own leaders are giving up, we can't keep it hidden forever." Dr. Emily Carter interrupted. Her tone was sharp, cutting through the tension. "But if we handle this carefully, we might be able to turn it around. Expose the traitors, rally the people. Show them we're not giving up without a fight." President Hayes nodded slowly. "Do it," she said. "Release everything. Let the world know the truth." As the meeting broke up, Monroe approached Carter. "What about you?" he asked. "Any breakthroughs on the science front?" Carter hesitated before answering. "There's something strange," she admitted. "A few months ago, I detected an anomaly near Pluto. It was faint, almost like a signal. I thought it was interference at first, but now—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "It's probably nothing. But maybe it's worth checking out." Monroe raised an eyebrow. "Checking out? How? We don't exactly have ships capable of reaching Pluto right now." "I know," Carter replied. "But if there's even a chance—" Before she could finish, the door burst open. A young officer rushed in, his face pale. "Sir, madam," he stammered, addressing Monroe and Hayes. "Reports are coming in from New York. The Vorthak, they've started landing troops." Chaos erupted once again. Outside, cities burned as alien forces descended, their technology rendering Earth's defenses useless. In New York City, Daniel Brooks watched helplessly as towering machines marched through the streets, reducing buildings to rubble. Fires raged everywhere, and the air was thick with smoke and screams. Catherine held Liam close, tears streaming down her face. "We need to leave," she whispered. "Now." Daniel hesitated, torn between staying to document the invasion and protecting his family. Finally, he grabbed his camera and slung it over his shoulder. "Let's go," he said. "We'll head west. There are rumors of safe zones in Colorado." They joined the flood of refugees fleeing the city, carrying only what they could carry. Along the way, they saw others doing the same. Families clutching suitcases, elderly people struggling to keep up, children crying in fear. Despite the horror, there was also a sense of determination. People weren't giving up. Not yet. Back in Washington, Monroe stared at a map of the solar system, his mind racing. Carter's words echoed in his thoughts. Could there really be something near Pluto, something that might save them all? Whatever it was, one thing was clear. Humanity couldn't face the Vorthak alone. They needed a miracle, and they needed it fast. Commander Jack Monroe stood in the dimly lit control room, staring at the holographic map of the solar system. Dr. Emily Carter's words about the strange signal near Pluto kept replaying in his mind. It was a long shot, a very long shot, but humanity didn't have many options left. If there was even a small chance of finding something useful out there, it was worth the risk. "Sir," said Lieutenant Alex Rivera, stepping into the room, "we've assembled a team for the mission. Captain Rachel Bennett will lead the reconnaissance crew." Monroe nodded. "Good. Tell her to prep the ship. We don't have much time." The plan was risky. Sending a small team so far from Earth meant leaving the planet more vulnerable than ever. But if the signal turned out to be real, if it led to something that could help them fight back, then it might just save billions of lives. The team consisted of 3 people: Captain Bennett, an experienced pilot with nerves of steel; Lieutenant Rivera, who specialized in alien languages and communication systems; and Sergeant Luke Harper, a combat expert trained in handling hostile situations. As the team boarded their vessel, the Eclipse Asterisk, Captain Bennett gave one last glance at Earth through the cockpit window. The planet looked fragile from this distance, its blue-green surface marred by the dark shapes of the Vorthek fleet. She clenched her jaw and focused on the task ahead. Failure wasn't an option. The journey to Pluto took several days. During that time, the crew worked tirelessly, running diagnostics and preparing for every possible scenario. Lieutenant Rivera spent hours poring over data collected by Dr. Carter, trying to pinpoint the exact location of the signal. Sergeant Harper checked and rechecked their weapons, making sure they were ready for anything. When they finally arrived, what they found was beyond anything they had imagined. Beneath layers of ice on Pluto's surface lay the wreckage of an ancient ship. Its design was unlike anything human or Vorthek. It was sleek and intricate, with glowing patterns etched into its hull. The team suited up and ventured outside, their boots crunching against the frozen terrain. "This is incredible," Rivera muttered as they approached the ship. "It looks abandoned." Bennett nodded. "Let's get inside. Stay alert." The entrance to the ship was sealed, but Harper managed to pry it open using a plasma cutter. Inside, the air was cold and still, as if untouched for centuries. Holographic displays flickered to life as they moved deeper, showing images of a vast civilization that once ruled the galaxy. They learned that this race, called the Zanari, had been wiped out by the Vorthek thousands of years ago. But the most important discovery came when they reached the central chamber. There, embedded in the floor, was a console displaying coordinates. Rivera deciphered the symbols quickly. "These aren't random numbers," he said, excitement creeping into his voice. "They're pointing to a hidden armada, a massive fleet of warships." Bennett's eyes widened. "How many?" Rivera hesitated before answering. 500,000. The implications hit them all at once. If they could activate this fleet, humanity might stand a chance. But first, they needed to get the information back to Earth, and fast. Meanwhile, on Earth, the situation was growing worse. The Vorthak had begun constructing orbital platforms designed to bombard the planet into submission. Refugees like Daniel, Catherine, and Liam struggled to stay alive, moving from one makeshift camp to another. Daniel continued documenting the invasion, capturing both the despair and resilience of those around him. Back aboard the Eclipse Asterisk, Captain Bennett sent a message to Commander Monroe. "We found something big," she said. "Something that could turn the tide. Get ready." As the tiny ship sped back toward Earth, hope flickered faintly in the hearts of its crew. For the first time since the invasion began, they dared to believe that humanity might not be doomed after all. The message from Captain Rachel Bennett reached Earth just as the Vorthak intensified their assault. Commander Jack Monroe listened intently, his face lighting up with a mix of disbelief and determination. 500,000 warships, hidden away for thousands of years, could be the key to humanity's survival. But activating such a fleet wasn't going to be easy, and time was running out. President Laura Hayes wasted no time. She authorized Monroe to take full command of the operation, working closely with Dr. Emily Carter to unlock the secrets of the ancient Zanari technology. "We need those ships online," she said firmly. "Now." Monroe assembled a team of engineers, scientists, and pilots, all working around the clock to decode the data sent by Bennett's crew. The coordinates led to a remote region of space far beyond Pluto, where the hidden armada lay dormant. Activating it required solving complex equations and bypassing security protocols designed to prevent unauthorized access. Every second felt like an eternity, but failure wasn't an option. As preparations continued on Earth, The Vorthak grew bolder. Their orbital platforms began firing test shots into the atmosphere, causing massive destruction. Cities crumbled under the relentless attacks, and millions more were displaced. Resistance fighters did what they could, using guerrilla tactics to slow the invaders, but it was clear they couldn't hold out much longer. In Colorado, Daniel Brooks, Catherine, and young Liam joined a group of refugees hiding in an abandoned mine. Food was scarce, and fear lingered in the air, but people clung to hope. Daniel documented everything, capturing stories of bravery and loss. One night, as he sat by a small fire, he overheard whispers about the mysterious signal near Pluto and the promise of reinforcements. It was just a rumor, but it gave everyone something to believe in. Meanwhile, Captain Bennett and her team arrived at the coordinates. What they saw left them speechless. Stretching across the void of space were hundreds of thousands of ships, each one bristling with weapons and advanced technology. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. These vessels were relics of a bygone era, yet they looked as though they had been built yesterday. Lieutenant Alex Rivera worked quickly, interfacing with the fleet's central control system. After hours of trial and error, he managed to send a signal that awakened the ships. One by one, they powered up, their engines roaring to life. The sheer scale of the armada was overwhelming, a testament to the ingenuity of the long-lost Zenari civilization. "This is it," Bennett said, her voice trembling with excitement. "Let's take them home." Back on Earth, the moment of truth arrived. As the first wave of alien dreadnoughts descended toward the planet, the skies suddenly darkened even further. From the edge of space, 500,000 warships emerged, blotting out the stars. The Vorthak fleet paused, confused by the sudden appearance of this new threat. Commander Monroe took charge, coordinating the attack from aboard one of the ancient ships. His voice crackled over the comms as he addressed the human resistance below. "This is our chance," he said. "Hit them hard. Show them we're not defenseless." The battle erupted with ferocity. Human-piloted ships clashed with the Vorthak, unleashing devastating firepower. Sergeant Luke Harper led ground teams equipped with captured enemy weapons, striking at key targets and turning the tide in several critical areas. Civilians watched in awe as explosions lit up the sky, signaling the beginning of humanity's counterattack. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a glimmer of hope. The Vorthak, caught off guard, struggled to regroup. Their arrogance had blinded them to the possibility of resistance on this scale. Humanity, armed with the power of an ancient empire, refused to go quietly into extinction. As the fight raged on, Catherine held Liam close, whispering words of encouragement. Daniel filmed the chaos, knowing this footage would inspire future generations. And aboard the lead ship, Commander Monroe allowed himself a brief smile. They might not win yet, but for the first time, victory seemed possible. The battle raged on, lighting up the skies with explosions that could be seen from every corner of Earth. The ancient fleet, awakened from its long slumber, clashed fiercely with the Vorthak armada. For a while, it seemed like humanity had the upper hand. The sheer size and power of the Zenari ships overwhelmed the invaders, forcing them to retreat in disarray. But the Vorthak were not so easily defeated. Commander Jack Monroe stood on the bridge of the lead ship, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The enemy was regrouping, adapting to the new threat faster than anyone expected. "They're learning," he muttered under his breath. "We need to stay ahead of them." Dr. Emily Carter worked tirelessly alongside her team, analyzing data from the battle. She noticed something alarming. The Vorthak shields were beginning to adapt, resisting the energy weapons of the Zenari fleet. If they didn't find a way to counter this, the tide would turn again. And this time, humanity might not recover. "We need to target their weak points," Carter said during a hurried meeting with Monroe. "Their shielding has gaps, but only at specific frequencies. If we can pinpoint those." Monroe nodded. "Get me those frequencies. Fast." Back on Earth, the fight continued on the ground. Resistance fighters, led by Sergeant Luke Harper, launched coordinated attacks against the Vorthek forces occupying major cities. Using captured alien technology, they managed to disable several enemy units, giving civilians a chance to escape. Harper's team fought bravely, knowing that every second counted. In Colorado, Daniel Brooks and his family remained hidden in the mine, listening to distant booms and watching flashes of light illuminate the horizon. Despite the danger, Daniel ventured outside to film the battle. He wanted the world to see what was happening, to know that humanity wasn't giving up without a fight. Catherine begged him to stay safe, but she understood why he had to do it. Their son, Liam, clung to her, wide-eyed but silent. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Alex Rivera made a breakthrough aboard one of the Zenari ships. By deciphering intercepted Vorthek transmissions, he identified patterns in their shield modulation. They're cycling through frequencies, he explained to Captain Rachel Bennett. If we sync our weapons to match their cycle, we can break through. Bennett wasted no time. She relayed the information to Monroe, who ordered all ships to recalibrate their weapons. The adjustment worked. When the next wave of attacks came, the Zenari fleet shattered the Vorthek defenses, destroying dozens of enemy ships in quick succession. But the victory came at a cost. Several ancient vessels were lost in the process, their systems overloaded by the strain of combat. The humans piloting them struggled to keep up with the advanced controls, and mistakes proved fatal. Captain Bennett herself narrowly avoided disaster when her ship's engines sputtered mid-battle. Despite the losses, morale soared. The resistance on the ground redoubled their efforts, emboldened by the sight of the massive fleet driving back the invaders. Civilians cheered as reports spread of successful counterattacks. Even those still trapped in occupied territories found strength in the knowledge that help was coming. As the fighting dragged on, Commander Monroe reflected on the weight of his responsibility. Leading this fleet was unlike anything he'd ever done before. Every decision he made affected millions of lives. Yet, amidst the chaos, he felt a strange sense of pride. Humanity, despite its flaws and fears, had risen to meet the greatest challenge in its history. For now, the battle hung in the balance. The Vorthek were reeling, but they weren't beaten yet. Monroe knew the hardest part was still to come. But as he looked out at the stars, he allowed himself a moment of quiet hope. They had proven the Vorthek wrong. They weren't defenseless. And as long as they kept fighting, there was a chance they might win. The battle reached its peak as the Vorthek launched a desperate counterattack. Their ships swarmed like insects, firing relentlessly at the ancient fleet. Despite their earlier successes, humanity's forces began to falter. The Zenari ships, though powerful, were not indestructible. One by one, they fell, their systems overwhelmed by the relentless assault. Commander Jack Monroe gripped the railing of the bridge, his knuckles white. The tactical display showed the grim reality. The Vorthek were gaining ground. "We can't keep this up," he said through gritted teeth. "We're losing too many ships." Dr. Emily Carter worked feverishly in the command center, her fingers flying over the console. She knew they needed something more, a way to break the stalemate. Then she saw it. A pattern in the Vorthek energy signatures, a flaw in their shielding that could be exploited. "Jack," she called out urgently, "I think I've found something. If we focus our fire on specific points, we can collapse their shields entirely." Monroe didn't hesitate. He relayed the information to every ship in the fleet. "Target their weak spots," he ordered. "Concentrate all firepower on those areas. We only get one shot at this." Captain Rachel Bennett led the charge, directing her squadron to follow Carter's instructions. The Zenari weapons roared to life, unleashing concentrated beams of energy at the designated targets. One by one, the Vorthek shields flickered and failed, leaving their ships exposed. The tide began to turn. On Earth, the resistance fighters took advantage of the chaos. Sergeant Luke Harper coordinated attacks on enemy positions, using captured Vorthek weapons to devastating effect. Civilians joined the fight wherever they could, sabotaging supply lines and disrupting communications. In New York City, once a stronghold of the invaders, the streets echoed with cheers as human forces reclaimed territory block by block. Daniel Brooks filmed the scenes of triumph, capturing both the bravery of the fighters and the resilience of ordinary people. His wife, Catherine, stayed close to Liam, shielding him from the worst of the violence, while helping tend to the wounded. Even in the midst of war, moments of hope emerged, neighbors sharing food, strangers offering shelter, children smiling despite the fear around them. But the victory came at a cost. The ancient fleet was dwindling, its ships reduced to fiery wreckage in the void of space. Captain Bennett watched as another vessel exploded nearby, taking its crew with it. Her heart ached, but she forced herself to stay focused. There was no time for grief. Finally, the turning point came. Lieutenant Alex Rivera deciphered a critical transmission from the Vorthak command ship. It revealed the location of their central command hub, an enormous dreadnought orbiting Earth. If we take that out, Rivera said, we cripple their entire operation. Monroe didn't hesitate. He ordered a full assault on the dreadnought, leading the charge himself. The combined firepower of the remaining Zaneri ships converged on the massive vessel, tearing through its weakened defenses. Explosions rippled across its surface as human pilots pushed their ships to the limit. When the dreadnought finally collapsed, the shockwave reverberated through space. The remaining Vorthak ships wavered, their formations breaking apart. Sensing defeat, they began to retreat, fleeing into the depths of space. As the last of the invaders disappeared, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. Exhausted but victorious, the human forces gathered what remained of their fleet. Commander Monroe looked out at the stars, his chest heaving with emotion. They had done it. They had driven the Vorthak away. Back on Earth, survivors emerged from hiding, blinking in the sunlight. Daniel filmed the moment, capturing tears of joy and relief. Catherine hugged Liam tightly, whispering prayers of gratitude. Though the planet was scared and battered, humanity had endured. For the first time in weeks, there was peace, but everyone knew the scars would remain, for the planet and for those who had fought to save it. The war was over, but the cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone. Earth's skies were clear for the first time in weeks, though scars from the battle remained etched into the planet's surface. Cities lay in ruins, their streets empty and buildings reduced to rubble. Billions had been displaced, and millions had lost their lives. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was a sense of triumph, a fragile but undeniable hope that humanity could rebuild. President Laura Hayes addressed the world from the steps of the Capitol building, her voice steady despite the exhaustion lining her face. We stood together when it mattered most, she said, looking out at the crowd gathered before her. Today we are alive because ordinary people chose to fight, not just for themselves, but for each other. We will honor those we lost by building a better future. Her words resonated deeply with those who heard them. Across the globe, people began the long process of recovery. Refugees returned to their homes, or what was left of them, determined to start anew. In Colorado, Daniel Brooks documented the rebuilding efforts, capturing stories of resilience and unity. His wife, Catherine, helped organize food drives and medical aid for survivors, while young Liam played among the ruins, finding joy even in the smallest things. Commander Jack Monroe retired from active duty shortly after the war ended. He moved back to his hometown, where he spent his days fishing by the lake and spending time with his grandchildren. Though haunted by memories of the battle, he found solace in knowing that humanity had proven its strength. "We didn't win because of me," he often said when asked about his role. "We won because we refused to give up." Dr. Emily Carter continued her work, now focused on unlocking the secrets of the Zaneri civilization. The ancient fleet remained in orbit around Earth, serving as both a shield and a reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction. Carter believed there was still much to learn from the technology, hoping it could pave the way for a brighter future. Captain Rachel Bennett stayed aboard one of the remaining Zaneri ships, overseeing patrols to ensure the Vorthak wouldn't return. She felt a deep responsibility to protect the planet that had fought so hard to survive. Lieutenant Alex Rivera joined her, using his skills to monitor deep space for any signs of new threats. Sergeant Luke Harper returned to civilian life, though he struggled to adjust after months of combat. He found purpose in training the next generation of soldiers, teaching them the importance of courage and teamwork. War changes you, he told his students, but it doesn't have to break you. As the months passed, Earth slowly began to heal. New governments formed, uniting nations under a single banner for the first time in history. The Global Defense Initiative expanded, tasked with protecting humanity from whatever dangers might lie beyond the stars. Schools reopened, crops were planted, and laughter returned to communities that had known only fear. Daniel published his account of the war, titling it ***. They thought Earth was defenseless ***. The book became a symbol of hope, reminding readers of what humanity could achieve when united. It inspired countless generations to dream of a future where peace, not war, defined their existence. One evening, as the sun set over a scared but resilient planet, Catherine held Liam close, watching the horizon glow with warm light. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "We already are," he replied. "We survived, and that's just the beginning." In the years to come, humanity would look back on this chapter of its history not with bitterness, but with pride. They had faced the greatest threat imaginable, and emerged stronger than ever before.